Before we get into today's gameplay, what is Canadian Highlander? Canadian Highlander is a 100 card, singleton, 1v1 competitive Magic the Gathering format that utilizes a points list alongside the vintage banned list. There are no sideboards, and the only companions are the ones in your deck. Each deck must contain a minimum of 100 cards and contain no more than any of one given card, except basic lands and any cards that explicitly state that any number can be played, such as Relentless Rats. Canadian Highlander allows you to play with some of the most powerful cards ever printed in Magic's history. The format is balanced by the point system, where select cards are assigned a points value. Each deck can contain no more than 10 points, which allows freedom to play powerful cards such as Black Lotus or Ancestral Recall, but limits how many you can play to prevent format homogeneity. Links to more information about the format, the points list, the Canadian Highlander Discord server, and today's deck list will be posted in the video description. Now, let's get into the games. Let's start off by showcasing our players and decks. I am JumpShot22 and I am playing Boros equipment. This deck has gotten a couple of new additions recently with Cloud Midgar Mercenary, Wrecking Ball Arm, and Corey Steelcutter that really help push it to make it a viable strategy in Canadian Highlander in 2025. This deck can have a blisteringly fast start and kill early, or assemble a more grindy game plan that controls the board and is hard to deal with, depending on the matchup. My deck's points are Mox Pearl, Mox Ruby, Sol Ring, and Urza's Saga. This deck's points focus almost entirely on fast mana to accelerate into powerful early creatures with the flexibility of Urza's Saga to search out the perfect artifact for the board state and generate constructs to attach equipment to. My opponent is Matt, aka the Real EMT, who is playing what he calls 4-color OmniTeleTinkertubbies. This is a spicy version of an Omniscience Show and Tell deck that Matt has brewed up. Matt's version is a lot less all-in on the Omniscience plan. It's part Reanimator, part Tinker combo, and part Omniscience all wrapped up in one package. At its core though, it is a combo deck that aims to kill quickly. Matt's deck has a wide point spread with Tinker, Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Balance, Mana Vault, Tolarian Academy, and Tainted Pact. This deck's points focus largely on tutors and mana acceleration. In game 1, I kept a starting hand of 7 cards, and Matt mulliganed down to 6 cards. Matt won the die roll, chose to go first, and gets to start us off. Matt plays a Misty Rainforest, and casts a Mishra's Bauble. He passes. I draw for turn and play a basic Plains. I cast Sol Ring. Sol Ring resolves, and I then cast Lightning Greaves. I pass. On my end step, Matt pays 1 life, going down to 19, and sacrifices his Misty Rainforest, searching up an Undercity Sewers onto the battlefield tapped. With the Surveil trigger, Matt chooses to keep the card on the top of his library. Matt untaps and draws. He plays a Tropical Island. He casts a Grim Monolith, and then passes the turn. I untap and draw. I play a Windswept Heath. I pay 1 life, going down to 19, and sacrifice the Windswept Heath, finding a Plateau. I cast Halvar, God of Battle. Halvar resolves, and I equip Lightning Greaves, giving Halvar haste and shroud. I move to combat and attack Matt with Halvar. Matt declares no blocks. Since Halvar is equipped, he has double strike, so Matt takes 8 damage, going down to 11 life. I pass. Matt untaps and draws. He plays a Hedge Maze. With the Surveil trigger on the stack, Matt casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing the Hedge Maze as an additional cost. He finds a Tolarian Academy onto the battlefield. The Surveil trigger resolves, and Matt decides to put a Show and Tell into his graveyard. He passes. I untap and draw. I play an Arid Mesa. I cast Sword of Fire and Ice. I move to combat. Matt sees that he has no outs, concedes, and I win the game. In game 2, both players mulliganed. Matt kept 6 cards and I kept 5 cards. Matt chose to go first and gets to start us off. Matt plays a basic island. He casts Chromox, imprinting Stock Up. He then casts Sensei's Divining Top. He passes. I draw for turn, play a Sacred Foundry, paying 2 life for it to enter untapped, going down to 18 life. I cast Esper Sentinel. Matt responds and casts Mystical Tutor. He searches for Tinker, putting it on top of his library. I then pass the turn. Matt untaps and draws the Tinker he searched for with Mystical Tutor. He plays Gemstone Caverns. He casts Tinker, sacrificing Chromox as an additional cost. Esper Sentinel triggers, and I draw a card. Tinker resolves, and Matt searches a Boros' Citadel onto the battlefield. Using the Citadel, he pays 2 life, going down to 18 life to cast Talisman of Dominance from the top of his library. He activates Sensei's Divining Top to draw a card and put the top on top of his library. He pays 1 life, going down to 17 life to cast Sensei's Divining Top from the top of his library. He pays 1 life, going down to 16 life to cast Vampiric Tutor from the top of his library. He searches for Aetherflux Reservoir and puts it on the top of his library. Recognizing that I have no way to disrupt this combo, I concede and Matt wins the game. In case you are unfamiliar with this combo, with Boros' Citadel, Sensei's Divining Top, and Aetherflux Reservoir on the battlefield, Matt is able to activate the top to draw a card and put the top on top of his library. He can then pay 1 life to cast the top from his library using the Citadel. This triggers Aetherflux Reservoir, gaining him 1 life for each spell cast this turn. He can then activate the top again to repeat this process over and over to gain an absurd amount of life. Then activate the Aetherflux Reservoir by paying 50 life to deal 50 damage to me and win the game. For Game 3, both players mulliganed. Matt kept 4 cards, and I kept 6 cards. I chose to go first and get to start us off. I play Windswept Heath as land for turn. I pass. Matt draws and plays a Marsh Flats. He passes. On Matt's end step, I pay 1 life, going down to 19, and sacrifice my Windswept Heath. I search for an Elegant Parlor onto the battlefield tapped. With the Surveil trigger, I choose to keep the card on top of my library. I untap and draw for turn. I play a Clifftop Retreat. I cast Glimmerlens. It enters, and I create a 2/2 red Rebel creature token, then attach the Glimmerlens to it. I pass. On my end step, Matt pays 1 life, going down to 19, and sacrifices his Marsh Flats. He finds a Bayou. He casts Vampiric Tutor. It resolves, and Matt searches for a card and puts it on top of his library. He loses 2 life, going down to 17. Matt untaps and draws the card he tutored for. He plays a City of Traders as land for turn. He then casts Oath of Druids and passes the turn. I untap and draw. I play a basic Plains. I cast Cori Steelcutter. I cast Steel Shaper's Gift. Cori Steelcutter triggers, and I make a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess, then attach Cori Steelcutter to it. The monk now has +1/+1, trample, and haste. Steel Shaper's Gift resolves, and I search for the Aether Spark into my hand. I move to combat and attack the Rebel and Monk. Glimmerlens triggers since the Rebel is attacking with another creature. I draw a card. Matt declares no blocks and takes 4 damage, going down to 13 life. I pass. Matt untaps, and in his upkeep, Oath of Druids triggers. Matt chooses me since I control more creatures than he does. He reveals cards from the top of his library until he reveals Tamio, Inquisitive Student, and puts it onto the battlefield. The other revealed cards go into his graveyard. He draws and then passes the turn. I untap and draw. I play a Bloodstained Mire. I pay 1 life, going down to 18, and sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire. I search for a plateau onto the battlefield. I cast the Aether Spark. Prowess triggers, and the monk gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I activate the +1 loyalty ability of the Aether Spark, attaching it to the monk token and putting a +1/+1 counter onto the monk. I move to combat and attack with the Rebel and the monk. Glimmerlens triggers, and I draw a card. Matt blocks the monk token with Tamio. Monk tramples over for 1 point of damage for a total of 3 damage, taking Matt down to 10 life. Pass the turn. Matt untaps, and in his upkeep, Oath of Druids triggers. He chooses me again. He reveals cards from the top of his library until he reveals Valgavoth, Terror Eater, and puts it onto the battlefield. The rest of the revealed cards go into his graveyard. He draws. He casts Chromox, imprinting Omniscience. He casts a Brainstorm, drawing 3 cards and putting 2 cards back on the top of his library. He plays Caracas as land for turn. City of Traders triggers, and Matt sacrifices it. Matt passes. I untap and draw. I play a basic Plains. I cast March of Otherworldly Light, X equals 2, targeting the Oath of Druids. Prowess triggers, giving the monk +1/+1 until end of turn. March resolves, and Oath of Druids is exiled. March of Otherworldly Light is exiled instead of going to the graveyard due to Valgavoth's ability, and Matt can cast it later on his turn. I activate the +1 loyalty ability of the Aetherspark, attaching it to the monk token, putting a +1/+1 counter onto the monk. I pass. Matt untaps and draws for turn. He moves the combat and attacks with Valgavoth. I declare no blocks and take 9 damage, going down to 9 life. Matt gains 9 life from lifelink, going up to 19 life. Matt uses Valgavoth's ability to pay 1 life, going down to 18, and casts March of Otherworldly Light on his turn, targeting my monk token. It resolves and the monk is exiled. He then casts Talisman of Dominance, and passes the turn. I untap and draw. I activate the -5 loyalty ability on the Aetherspark, drawing 2 cards. I cast Path of Exile, targeting Valgavoth, sacrificing the Aetherspark, Glimmerlens, and the Rebel token to pay the ward cost. All 3 are exiled due to Valgavoth's ability. Path of Exile resolves, Valgavoth is exiled, and Matt searches the library for a basic island onto the battlefield tapped. I cast Fighter class. Corey Steelcutter triggers, and I make a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess, then attach Corey Steelcutter to it. Fighter class resolves, and I search for a Shadow Spear into my hand. I move to combat and attack with the monk. Matt declares no blocks and takes 2 damage, going down to 16 life. I pass. Matt untaps, draws, and passes the turn. I untap and draw. I play Battlefield Forge. I cast Shadow Spear. Prowess triggers, giving the monk +1/+1 until end of turn. I cast Lava Spur Boots. Prowess triggers again, giving the monk another +1/+1 until end of turn. Corey Steelcutter triggers, and I make a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess and attach Corey Steelcutter to it. I equip Shadow Spear onto the monk token, not attached to the Corey Steelcutter. I equip the Lava Spur Boots onto the same monk token. I cast Chain Lightning, targeting Matt. Prowess triggers, giving both monk tokens +1/+1 until end of turn. Chain Lightning resolves, and Matt takes 3 damage, going down to 13 life. I move to combat and attack with a 3/3 monk and a 6/5 monk. Before blocks, Matt casts Path to Exile, targeting the 6/5 monk, paying an additional mana for the ward cost. Path resolves, and I find a basic plains onto the battlefield tapped. Matt then declares no blocks and takes 3 damage, going down to 10 life. I pass. Matt untaps and draws. He plays a tropical island and passes the turn. I untap and draw. I move to equip the Shadow Spear onto my monk token. I equip the Lava Spur Boots onto my monk token. I then cast Forked Bolt, targeting Matt. Prowess triggers, giving the monk +1/+1 until end of turn. Forked Bolt resolves, and Matt takes 2 damage, going down to 8 life. I move to combat and attack with a 5/4 monk. Matt declares no blocks and takes 5 damage, going down to 3 life. I pass. On my end step, Matt casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing a basic island as an additional cost. He searches his library for an Undercity Sewers onto the battlefield tapped. Surveil triggers, and Matt puts a Mox Diamond into his graveyard. Matt untaps and draws. He sees no way to survive my attack the following turn, concedes, and I win the game and the match. Well, that was an interesting match. We got to see both decks go off and get early turn 3 and turn 2 kills in both games 1 and 2. Game 3 showed how Matt's deck can mulligan really low and still put together a solid game plan with Oath of Druids. I have been playing this Boros equipment deck since the release of Final Fantasy, and I have been thoroughly impressed with how good it is, especially with all the recent additions. Equipment strategies have been getting a lot of love from Wizards recently, and it seems like we now have a lot of redundancy in the key slots to make this a competitively viable deck for the foreseeable future. The MVP of this match goes out to Corey Steelcutter. Historically, equipment decks have usually had 2 halves to them: creatures, and then the equipment to attach to the creatures. Equipment are useless without creatures, and your creatures are pretty subpar without the equipment. Corey Steelcutter solves that problem. It is an equipment itself, generates creatures to attach equipment onto, and attaches itself to the creatures it creates. And not only that, it makes creatures with prowess that synergize with casting other equipment. This is truly an absurdly powerful card, and it's making splashes in Modern, Legacy, and is banned in Standard. I expect it to become more and more popular in Canadian Highlander, especially with how many cheap spells are being played. It is incredibly easy to double spell multiple times in a row currently in Canadian Highlander. Corey Steelcutter is an incredibly flexible card and fits into many different shells. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the match. Please comment below what decks you would like to see played on the channel. If you'd like to be featured on the channel, you can find me on the Canadian Highlander Discord server looking for games and chatting about decks. See ya.